In the late 1972s, in an old farmhouse in the English countryside, James Dyson, then a man in his 30s, was struggling to clean with what was considered the most modern vacuum cleaner at the time. The motor roared, but the dust on the floor remained stubbornly in place. When he removed the filter, he discovered it was clogged with fine dust, rendering the suction almost useless. A machine hailed as the pinnacle of technology was powerless in its task. That moment not only frustrated Dyson as a housekeeper, but also struck a chord with an engineer. He couldn't accept that humans could send spacecraft to the moon and build supersonic aircraft, yet tolerate a vacuum cleaner that grew weaker with use due to outdated filter technology. Worse still, the industry seemed to know this but ignored it, profiting double from selling both the machine and replacement filters. Amidst the swirling dust in the old kitchen, James Dyson realized something important. The problem wasn't. The user lies in the very way the industry accepts mediocrity. From a very ordinary fit of anger, a crazy idea began to take shape: to create a bagless, clog-free vacuum cleaner with uncompromising suction power, refusing to compromise with inefficiency. Few could have imagined that this small moment would be the starting point for a technological revolution leading to the birth of the multi-billion-dollar Dyson empire. But the path from a man covered in dirt in a humble country kitchen to a knighted by the Queen and becoming one of the richest billionaires in Britain was a painful journey filled with over 5,000 failures, years of debt, protracted lawsuits, and a lonely battle against an entire giant industry. The Dyson story is not just a story about machines or technology, but a story about the extraordinary stubbornness of humanity, about the courage to say something isn't good enough when the whole world accepted that things were fine as they were. And it was from that very rejection that a legend began. Before becoming the king of airflow, James Dyson was a restless individual. Born in 1947 inches, Cromer, Norfolk, United Kingdom, into an intellectual family, Dyson was greatly influenced by his father, a classical literature teacher. However, his father died of cancer when Dyson was very young. This loss shaped Dyson's independent personality and strong fighting spirit from an early age. He was sent to Gresham School, a boarding school where he regularly ran long-distance cross-country races, a sport requiring endurance and solitude qualities that would stay with him throughout his later business career. Dyson studied at the Royal Academy of Art, RCA, in London in the late 60s, a period of booming culture and design. Initially, he studied interior design and furniture, but quickly grew bored with simply creating aesthetically pleasing things. He was fascinated by how things worked, action. For him, beauty meant function. The philosophy of form following function began to take shape. At RCA, Dyson met Jeremy Fry, a brilliant businessman and engineer who headed Rotork Fry, becoming Dyson's greatest mentor. He didn't teach Dyson to draw, but rather how to think and how to realize ideas. Their first project together was the Sea Truck, a high-speed, flat-bottomed landing craft capable of carrying heavy cargo and landing directly on the beach without a pier. Dyson was only a student in his early 20s at the time, but Fry gave him full authority from prototype design to marketing it. Dyson recounted that Jeremy Fry never said, "You can't do it." He only said, "Go do it and see what happens." The lesson of practical work instead of just drawing on paper was deeply ingrained in Dyson's mind. By the 1972s, Dyson lived with his wife, Deirdre, an art student he met and fell deeply in love with, on an old farm in the Cotswolds that needed renovation. The farm repairs required him to constantly transport building materials by wheelbarrow. And once again, frustration set in. The traditional wheelbarrow, with its narrow wheels, constantly sank into the soft, muddy soil of the English countryside, making pushing it a real ordeal. Furthermore, the metal wheelbarrow frequently rusted and cement mortar clung to it. Instead of accepting this as so many farmers had done for centuries, Dyson decided to change things. He observed construction workers using concrete spheres to fill gaps. The idea struck him: why not replace the narrow wheels with a sphere? A sphere would have a larger contact area, wouldn't sink, and would roll on the muddy surface instead of cutting into it. And so, the ball barrow wheelbarrow was born in 1919, 174. It was a revolutionary design. A bright red plastic wheelbarrow with a rust-proof body and, remarkably, a red pneumatic ball instead of wheels. It was lighter, more durable, and most importantly, never got stuck in mud. The ball barrow won the Industrial Design Award in 1977 and quickly captured 50% of the wheelbarrow market in England. Dyson tasted the sweetness of success for the first time, but it was from this product that he also learned his first and most bitter lesson about the business world due to his naive management experience in legal matters and his failure to hold a controlling stake in the company he founded. As Dyson produced the ball barrow, he gradually lost his voice. Other investors wanted to prioritize short-term profits, while Dyson wanted to continue innovating and expanding into the American market. The conflict escalated, and ultimately, Dyson was pushed out of the company he had founded by his own shareholders and investors. He lost control of his brainchild, and even the patent rights to the ball barrow to his former company. It was a huge shock. Imagine being the father of a brilliant invention, pouring your sweat and tears into creating it, only to have everything taken away because of a few small words in a contract. Dyson left empty-handed, without a single penny of ball barrow royalties. But in his mind, he had a principle that would later become the unwavering guiding principle of the Dyson empire: to own his technology 100%, to own his company 100%, never to let others, especially financial investors, control his destiny, his innovation. Sometimes, to change an entire industry, you have to dare to be so different that you're considered crazy. Pioneers are often misunderstood, but they are the ones who shape the future. Leaving the ball barrow project in 1979, Dyson returned to square one. He no longer had a company, no longer had an income, but his mind was still brimming with ideas. He returned to his frustration with his home vacuum cleaner. The machine was noisy, but couldn't suck up dust. Dyson recalled a visit to a local sawmill to buy wood. There, he saw huge piles of sawdust that weren't filtered by bags but separated from the air by tall, conical metal towers called cyclones. The extremely strong centrifugal force pushed the heavy sawdust against the walls and down, leaving a stream of clean air to escape. A crazy question popped into Dyson's head. Could he miniaturize that giant industrial cyclone tower into a small household vacuum cleaner? If he succeeded, he would completely eliminate the dust bag, the cause of suction blockage, and the machine's suction would always remain at maximum, no matter how full the dustbin was. It was a brilliant idea, but the gap between idea and reality was immense, an abyss Dyson was about to jump into without knowing how deep it was. After selling off his remaining meager shares, James Dyson had to borrow money from everywhere. He mortgaged the family's only house to the bank for a loan, turning the garage behind the house into a makeshift laboratory. At this time, his wife, Deirdre, became the main breadwinner of the family, teaching, drawing, and selling illustrations. She shouldered the burden of supporting James and their 3 young children, Emily, Jack, and Sam. If you walked into that garage in the early 1982, you would see a chaotic but passionate scene. Cardboard, tape, and crude plastic models lay scattered everywhere. Dyson didn't have the money to make plastic molds for each experiment, so he used cardboard, a utility knife, and tape too, creating the shape of vortex tubes. The theory is simple: air rotates at extremely high speeds, but the reality of physics is incredibly harsh. The problem is that sawdust in a woodworking shop is very large and heavy, so it's easily separated from the airflow. But dust in a house is different. It consists of extremely small fine dust particles, pollen, and mold. To separate them by centrifugal force, the vortex must reach extremely high speeds and precisely controlled pressure. Even a slight deviation in the angle of the cone will result in the machine not sucking anything up, dust escaping, or the motor roaring like a wounded beast. Day after day, month after month, year after year, Dyson lived like a hermit in his garage. Neighbors began to look at him with pity and sympathy. A middle-aged man, a graduate of a prestigious art school, was now unemployed, spending his days holed up in his shed, crafting meaningless things from cardboard. He was deeply in debt. Bank interest rates in England at the time sometimes reached 20% due to inflation. The bank constantly called, threatening to foreclose on their house. There were times when the Dyson family had to grow their own vegetables and sew clothes for their children from scraps of fabric to save every penny. They never traveled, never bought luxury goods. Deirdre later recalled that they lived in extreme uncertainty, but she never told her husband to stop. She knew he was doing something important. The loneliness during this period was absolute. No one believed in him. Even close friends advised Dyson to stop and find a decent job. But Dyson had an unwavering, almost blind belief in the laws of physics. Whenever a prototype failed, he didn't see it as the end. He saw it as a clue. Where did this go wrong? Why is the dust still here? Why is the airflow blocked? He meticulously recorded everything in his notebooks, which are still preserved at the Dyson Museum. Prototype 1 didn't work. Prototype 200 was still clogged. Prototype 1000 separated the large dust particles, but the fine dust still escaped. Prototype 2627 had good suction, but it was too noisy. These were the dry notes in his notebooks. On cold winter nights, with his hands and feet numb, Dyson would still painstakingly refine each plastic detail. He was searching for an aerodynamic formula that no textbook had ever described. He was rewriting the laws of cleaning using the most rudimentary experimental methods, trial and error. By the 5126th trial, the machine was still not perfect. An average person would probably have given up by the 10th or 100th attempt, but Dyson persevered to the 5000th. And then, one day, in 1983, after 4 long years and 5,127 prototypes, the G-Force vacuum cleaner, a vibrant pink, worked flawlessly. It sucked up dust, pet hair, and even the smallest pollen grains without clogging, without a filter bag. Dyson had done it. He had packed the power of a storm into a plastic box. Holding the machine in his hands, he thought the world would welcome him as a hero. He believed that major appliance manufacturers would line up to buy the patent rights. He prepared himself for wealth and glory, to reward his wife and children. But Dyson was wrong. He was too naive about the nature of the marketplace. The real battle wasn't in the garage with cardboard and tape, but out there, with the business sharks. In the 1980 seconds, the global vacuum cleaner market was dominated by names like Hoover, Electrolux, Bosch, and Black & Decker. Their business models were incredibly perfect and sustainable for decades. They sold vacuum cleaners cheaply, but made huge profits from selling replacement dust bags. It was the classic razor and blade model. The machine itself was just a pretext. The dust bag market was the real goldmine, worth hundreds of millions of dollars annually. When James Dyson took his G-Force vacuum cleaner door-to-door to sell the patent, he had no idea he was delivering a death sentence to their goldmine. The executives met him coldly. They acknowledged his technology was better, his suction stronger, but then they shook their heads. They said that if a bagless vacuum cleaner was a good idea, we would have made one a long time ago. If we used this technology, we would kill our own bag vacuum cleaner market. The profit lies in 50 bags, not in the machine itself. They didn't reject Dyson's machine because it wasn't good. They rejected it because it was too good. It directly threatened their livelihoods. Dyson was rejected not just once, but dozens of times, from England to America. The feeling of being boycotted by an entire industry was terrifying. Dyson realized he was up against an aging but incredibly powerful business regime. Meanwhile, back home, debt hung over his head. Desperate at home, Dyson turned his attention to Japan, a market always hungry for new, quirky, and sophisticated technologies. Japanese culture valued cleanliness and futuristic designs. Fortunately, a small Japanese company called Apex saw the potential of the G-Force and agreed to license its production. In 1986, the first bagless vacuum cleaner, the G-Force, was sold in Japan. Because it was produced in small quantities and positioned as a high-tech product, it cost up to $2,000 a unit, an exorbitant price, but the Japanese loved it. The vibrant pink, Dyson's unconventional choice, stood out in modern Tokyo apartments. The machine quickly became a status symbol, a luxury tech gadget coveted by Japan's elite. Royalties from Japan began flowing into Dyson's pockets. Though small, it was enough to lift him out of debt and save his house from foreclosure. However, Dyson was still not satisfied. The G-Force was still an Apex-branded product, manufactured in Japan, and too expensive for the average person. He wanted the British, his neighbors who had once mocked him, to have access to this technology at an affordable price. In 1984, Dyson signed a licensing agreement with Amway of America. After reviewing the blueprints and prototypes, Amway unexpectedly cancelled the contract and launched its own CMS 1000 vacuum cleaner, very similar to Dyson's design. Dyson believed Amway had copied his technology without permission. He decided to sue. The lawsuit dragged on for years and consumed a large portion of the royalties he earned from Japan. At times, he had to represent himself in court because he couldn't afford lawyers. Dyson spent hundreds of hours researching patent law, preparing documents, and arguing before the judge. In 1991, the lawsuit ended in an out-of-court settlement. After this, Dyson learned a bitter lesson. Every lawsuit consumed time, money, and energy that could have been used for product development. Dyson realized that selling patents would never get him anywhere as long as he depended on other companies for manufacturing and distribution. He would always be subject to their decisions, always fighting to protect his patents, and would never have enough resources to truly change the industry. In the early 1992, his contract with Apex of Japan ended. With his accumulated capital and another risky bank loan, Dyson once again mortgaged almost all of his assets. He decided to do the impossible. He would manufacture and sell vacuum cleaners himself. No more selling patents, no more partnerships with large corporations. He would build his own company. Dyson established a small factory and research center in Chippenham, then moved to Malmesbury. He assembled a team of enthusiastic young engineers, fresh out of school and untouched by the old industry mindset. They worked day and night to improve the G-Force into a more user-friendly, efficient, and affordable version. In 1993, the DC Dual Cyclone vacuum cleaner was officially born. Its distinctive grey-yellow color, upright design, and the bold statement on the box say goodbye to the dust bag. The DC01 cost £200, double the price of its competitors, which cost around £100. Retailers and distributors scoffed. Who would spend £200 on a vacuum cleaner from an unknown brand, made of clear plastic that revealed the dirt inside? They argued that seeing the dirt was disgusting and violated aesthetic principles. But Dyson thought differently. He believed in behavioral psychology. He believed that users wanted to see results. Seeing the dirt swirling and accumulating in the clear plastic container gave a strange sense of satisfaction. It was visual proof that the machine was actually working, pulling the filth out of your carpet. The DC01 was placed on the shelves of major electronics stores. And what happened? Was the arrogance of the experts right? Or did the intuition of the engineer, who had failed 5,000 times, prevail? The truth proved James Dyson right, and all the seasoned marketing experts were wrong. Consumers didn't find the sight of dirt disgusting. On the contrary, they were fascinated. The feeling of pushing the DC vacuum cleaner across the carpet and watching the transparent container fill up instantly provided intense visual satisfaction. It showed them just how terrible their old vacuum cleaner had been, missing so much dirt over the years. The DC vacuum cleaner was more than just a household appliance. It became a cultural phenomenon. Men, who were previously unfamiliar with and lazy about vacuuming, suddenly vied to do the chores just to watch the vortex of dust fill up. Dyson transformed a tedious and boring task into an exciting technological experience. The machine was displayed in the living room to show off to guests, instead of being hidden away in a cupboard. In just 18 months, starting from nothing, the DC became the best-selling vacuum cleaner in Britain. It knocked Hoover and Electrolux off the dominance they had held for decades. Sales skyrocketed. The British even began using the verb to Dyson, meaning to use Dyson, instead of to Hoover, a common expression. Dyson's success was a stinging slap in the face for the industry giants. Hoover was now forced to scramble to find a way to counter this, as their market share evaporated daily. In 1999, Hoover launched the Triple Vortex, a product line featuring 3 vortices, essentially identical to Dyson's technology, but advertised as superior. However, James Dyson was no longer the naive novice he was during his bull-barrow days. He had been preparing for this battle for a long time. Dyson sued Hoover in the UK Supreme Court for patent infringement. It was a David versus Goliath legal battle, incredibly long and costly. The pressure was immense on Dyson. Losing would bankrupt him due to legal fees and cost him the technology monopoly. But Dyson understood his creation better than anyone else. He stood before the court, meticulously explaining aerodynamics, the subtle differences that only its creator could understand. Ultimately, he won. In 2000, the court ruled against Hoover. The judge concluded that Hoover had copied Dyson's technology. Hoover was forced to withdraw the Triple Vortex product line from the market and compensate Dyson £4 million, plus £2 million in legal costs. This victory brought more than just money. £4 million was insignificant compared to revenue, but its symbolic significance was immense. It affirmed Dyson's dominant position in Cyclone technology and sent a powerful message to the world. Never copy James Dyson's ideas. By the end of the 1,990 seconds, Dyson had captured approximately 50% of the vacuum cleaner market in the UK. James Dyson became a billionaire, appearing in prestigious magazines, but he never rested on his laurels. For him, DC is not just the beginning. Dyson looked around the house and saw too many inefficient things, too many appliances whose inconveniences people had accepted for decades. His philosophy was simple and consistent. If something works poorly, fix it. If it works well, make it 10 times better through pure engineering, without compromise. He began expanding his headquarters in Malmesbury, turning it into a heavily guarded research fortress. Dyson recruited thousands of young engineers, prioritizing recent graduates. He believed that experienced people would say it couldn't be done, while fearless young people would ask why not. After the vacuum cleaner, the big question was what Dyson would do next. The answer lay in something invisible, yet ubiquitous: air. Dyson realized that the core of his technology wasn't vacuuming, but controlling airflow and fluid dynamics. Any device that used air was on his radar. Look at the hand dryers in public restrooms at the time. You wash your hands, press a button, and a weak stream of warm air comes out. You rub your hands for a minute, but they're still wet, and you end up wiping them on your pants to get it over with. That's a typical Dyson frustration. Traditional hand dryers use heat to evaporate water, which is energy-consuming, slow, and actually blows airborne bacteria from the restroom onto your clean hands. Dyson wondered why use heat to dry hands. Why not use a powerful blast of cold air to wipe away the water, like the windshield wipers on a car? And so the Airblade was born in 2006. Instead of hot air, it used a digital motor spinning at 80,000 revolutions per minute, pushing air through a narrow gap of only a few millimeters at extremely high speed. This stream of air forms an invisible blade of air, sweeping water away from your hand in just 10 to 12 seconds. This design is more hygienic thanks to its filtration system, faster, and significantly more energy efficient. Once again, Dyson redefined a device that everyone thought couldn't be improved any further. Next is the fan. For over 125 years since the electric fan was invented, it has remained virtually unchanged. Fans always have blades. These blades cut through the air, creating an uneven airflow that hits people directly and causes discomfort. They also pose a danger to children if they put their hands in and are extremely difficult to clean because dust accumulates in the fan housing. Dyson looked at the turbocharging technology of jet engines and wondered if it was possible to create a bladeless fan. The result was the Air Multiplier, born in 2009. A hollow circle, without blades, yet it still blows air powerfully. Many people look at it as if they're seeing magic, but it's purely physics. A small motor hidden beneath the base draws in air, pushes it up a hollow circle, and blows it through a narrow slot running along the rim. This high-speed airflow creates a low-pressure area, drawing in the surrounding air. For every unit of air drawn in, the fan blows out 15 units of air. The resulting airflow is smooth and continuous, like natural wind. The world was once again amazed. The Air Multiplier was not only cool, but also beautiful. It looked more like a modern sculpture than a household appliance. At this point, Dyson was no longer simply a vacuum cleaner manufacturer. They had become a global technology company. However, the path of innovation is never a straight line. In the frenzy of invention, overconfidence sometimes leads to mistakes, and Dyson also stumbled. There were setbacks worth tens, even hundreds of millions of pounds. They reminded him that excellent engineering wasn't enough. James Dyson wasn't afraid of failure. He saw failure as the cost of discovery, but some failures were more painful than others. In the early 2000s, Dyson wanted to revolutionize laundry. He looked at the traditional front-loading washing machine and saw that it washed too slowly and agitated the clothes inefficiently. Dyson invented the contra-rotator washing machine. The idea was bold. Instead of a single drum rotating in one direction, the contra-rotator had two drums rotating in opposite directions. It mimicked the hand-washing motion of a human, resulting in cleaner, faster washing and handling larger loads. Technically, it was a mechanical masterpiece, beautiful and efficient, but commercially, it was a disaster. The contra-rotator washing machine was too complex, with too many moving parts, driving up production costs significantly. It was too heavy, and the retail price was between £1,000 and £1,200, 3 times the price of a regular washing machine at the time. Although consumers loved Dyson's technology, they couldn't accept such a high price for an appliance typically placed in a laundry room or kitchen corner. Dyson tried to maintain the product line for several years, accepting losses to preserve his reputation, but the losses only compounded. Ultimately, he was forced to make a painful decision, discontinuing the contra-rotator in 2005. It was a major failure. Later, Dyson admitted with a bitter smile that they had made the best washing machine in the world, but couldn't make it profitable. The biggest, most costly, and most revealing failure of James Dyson's reckless nature was his electric car project. In 2017, Dyson caused a sensation by announcing his entry into the electric car race, directly competing with Tesla and other century-old car manufacturers. He pledged to invest £2.5 billion, recruiting hundreds of top automotive engineers from Aston Martin, BMW, and Land Rover. Dyson built a secret test track at an old Air Force base. The project was codenamed internally. Dyson's electric car was a formidable machine, a luxury 7-seater SUV using solid-state batteries developed by Dyson himself, with a range of up to 600 miles on a single charge, far surpassing many competitors at the time. Its sophisticated aerodynamic design and luxurious, futuristic interior were impressive. The car had undergone real-world testing. Dyson himself had driven it, but at the end of 2019, he sent a shocking email to all employees, announcing the cancellation of the electric car project. The reason was simple but cruel. To sell the car at a profit, Dyson would have to list it at around £150,000. Large car corporations could afford to lose money on each electric car to gain market share, offsetting it with the huge profits from their gasoline-powered vehicles. But Dyson couldn't. He had no other source of revenue to compensate. Continuing commercial production would have brought down the entire company, burning through profits from vacuum cleaners and fans. Dyson accepted the loss of hundreds of millions of pounds in his own pocket to stop at the right time. The decision to end the electric vehicle project when it was almost complete was one of the bravest and most astute decisions in modern business history. It showed James Dyson was a dreamer, but an extremely practical one. He knew when to stop to protect the survival of the empire he had built. However, from the ashes of that hundreds of millions of pounds failure, Dyson did not leave empty-handed in terms of knowledge. The company had mastered the technology of micro-digital electric motors, high-density battery technology, and sophisticated control software. These core technologies were quickly transferred to an unexpected market, the beauty industry. In 2016, Dyson revolutionized the beauty industry with the launch of its supersonic hairdryer. Prior to that, hairdryers had remained largely unchanged since the 1,960 seconds. They were noisy, heavy, and had large motors at the top, causing hand fatigue during prolonged use. More importantly, traditional hairdryers used very high temperatures, damaging hair, causing split ends, and dulling it. Dyson invested tens of millions of pounds in a state-of-the-art hair laboratory at its headquarters. They sourced real hair from around the world for testing, studying hair structure, shine, and elasticity under microscopes. Dyson's engineers, who were accustomed to machine oil and screws, now sat down to analyze individual hair strands. They created the V9 digital motor, about the size of a coin but rotating at over 100,000 revolutions per minute. This motor was much more powerful but quieter because its sound frequency exceeded the human hearing range. Thanks to its compact size, the motor is placed in the handle instead of the head. A small but revolutionary ergonomic change. It balances the weight and reduces hand fatigue. The Supersonic also features a temperature sensor that measures temperature dozens of times per second to ensure the airflow never exceeds levels that could damage hair. When the Supersonic launched at $400, the world laughed. $400 for a hairdryer sounded crazy, but when top hairstylists and beauty industry influencers tried it, they were completely won over. Hair dried faster, was shinier, and less frizzy. The quiet operation allowed stylists to chat with clients while drying hair. The Supersonic quickly became an indispensable item for the elite, a luxurious tech gift that many women longed to own. But that wasn't all. In 2018, Dyson launched its next breakthrough, Air Wrap. This was truly the magic of aerodynamics. Air Wrap utilizes a physical phenomenon called the Coanda effect. When a high-speed stream of air travels along a curved surface, it tends to cling to that surface. Dyson exploited this phenomenon to create a device that automatically sucks in and wraps hair around the curling barrel without the need for clamps or damaging high temperatures. The result is bouncy, natural-looking curls that hold their shape well while protecting the hair's structure. Women worldwide quickly went crazy for Air Wrap. Unboxing and testing videos flooded YouTube and social media. The product was constantly sold out for months. Dyson once again proved that when you address a user's core pain point with groundbreaking technology, price is no longer a barrier. They transformed seemingly ordinary beauty devices into high-end tech gadgets. rivaling smartphones or designer handbags. The pandemic that broke out in early 2020 made people more concerned than ever about the quality of the air they breathed. But Dyson had been thinking about this long before. In 2015, the company introduced Pure Cool, a bladeless fan with a filter capable of removing almost all fine dust and allergens from the air. This product combined powerful airflow technology without a fan and years of experience in dust filtration. Dyson's air purifier line gradually expanded with many different versions, some with integrated heating, some with humidification, and some specifically designed for bedrooms with ultra-quiet operation. One of the most noteworthy products was the Dyson Zone, launched in 2022. This is a premium noise-cancelling headset, combined with a removable face shield containing an internal air filter. Wearers can breathe filtered air when traveling in polluted urban environments. When the Dyson Zone was announced, it received considerable ridicule. Many compared it to masks worn by characters in science fiction films, even calling it a product for aliens. Its price tag of nearly $1,000 only fueled skepticism. However, Dyson had serious reasons behind this design. The company's research showed that pedestrians and cyclists in large cities are exposed to significantly higher levels of air pollution than those in cars with air filtration systems. Those who frequently use public transportation are even more severely affected. The Dyson Zone was designed for health-conscious urban dwellers willing to invest in solutions to protect themselves. Nevertheless, by the mid-2020s, Dyson decided to discontinue production of the product, viewing it as a technological experiment rather than a mass-market product. Alongside its expansion into the air and beauty sectors, Dyson continues to apply the same familiar formula to every new area. Find a popular household product whose basic technology hasn't changed in decades. In-depth research into the real problems users face. Then, completely redesign the product from scratch using cutting-edge technology. This formula hasn't always yielded resounding success. Not every Dyson product has become a phenomenon like the DC-1 or Supersonic, but even the unsuccessful ones provide lessons and technology applicable to other projects. That's the spirit Dyson learned from its 5,127 failed vacuum cleaner prototypes. In the early years, each failure wasn't a step backward, but a necessary step forward on the path to success. Today, Dyson is no longer a small, family-owned company in rural England. In 2019, James Dyson caused considerable controversy when he decided to move his headquarters from the UK to Singapore. The British press heavily criticised him, particularly because of his public support for Brexit. However, from a strategic perspective, Dyson understood that the future lay in Asia. Singapore was close to the manufacturing supply chains in Malaysia and the Philippines, and offered direct access to some of the world's fastest-growing markets, such as China and India. It was a purely business decision, cold but accurate. James Dyson, a man who once mortgaged his family's only home, has now become one of the richest people in the UK, with an estimated net worth of around $15 billion, at one point exceeding $20 billion. He is also one of the largest landowners in Britain, returning to his farming roots but in a modern, technologically advanced way. Even so, looking at James Dyson in his 70s, one still sees the same mischievous glint in his eyes as the engineer he once was in the dusty garage. He still hates ties, still wears his shirts open, and still enjoys going down to the workshop and engaging in heated debates with 20-year-old engineers. Dyson is betting the company's future on three main pillars. First, robots, creating truly intelligent household machines that can see, understand, and manipulate like humans. Second, artificial intelligence, enabling devices to learn and optimize based on usage habits. And third, solid-state batteries, the holy grail of the energy industry, allowing devices to run longer, charge faster, and be safer. To address the engineering shortage, Dyson even opened his own university on campus, the Dyson Institute of Engineering and Technology. Students there don't pay tuition. They learn by working on real-world projects, and they get paid. He's training his next generation of technology warriors. If you enter Dyson's headquarters, the first thing that catches your eye isn't the flashy products, but the failed prototypes. Hundreds of crooked, crude vacuum cleaners, clearly not working, are displayed like works of art. Some are made from cardboard and tape. Others have tangled wires and mismatched parts. Dyson displays them because he believes failure is an integral part of the creative process. He wants everyone in the company to understand that failure is nothing to be ashamed of. If you don't fail, it means you haven't tried hard enough. That philosophy is deeply ingrained in Dyson's culture. Engineers are encouraged to experiment with bold ideas, even when the chances of success are low, as long as they learn something from each failure. From the wheelbarrow stuck in the mud to the invisible streams of air that care for hair and protect human health, James Dyson has proven that if you are stubborn enough not to accept mediocrity, persistent enough to pursue an idea to the end, you can completely change an industry. Dyson's story is not over yet. It continues to be written in the secretive laboratories where young engineers continue to try and fail, continue to fail, and then create the next technological revolution. And you, look around you. Is there anything that isn't working well enough? Perhaps that small frustration is the seed for a billion-dollar empire in the future. Thank you for your time. If you found the content helpful, please leave a comment and check out other videos on the channel. Bye, and see you in the next video.